The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Manhattan penthouse as Victoria Sterling stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, her hand resting on the curve of her 8-month pregnant belly. The city bustled below, oblivious to the storm brewing in the luxury apartment 40 stories above. Marcus had left early, as he often did, claiming an urgent flight to Tokyo for a merger that could change everything. His kiss goodbye had felt rehearsed, mechanical, a performance, rather than affection. Victoria had learned to recognize the signs over their 5 years of marriage. The way his eyes never quite met hers when he lied, the excessive details in his explanations, the sudden need to shower before leaving. Baby Emma kicked vigorously, as if sensing her mother's unease. Victoria winced and moved to the kitchen, her silk robe flowing around her swollen frame. The coffee maker hummed to life, filling the silence that had become her constant companion. Marcus's absence wasn't unusual, but something felt different this time. More final. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her sister Jade. Saw Marcus's story on Instagram. Thought he was going to Tokyo. Victoria frowned, opening the app she rarely used. Her blood ran cold. Marcus had posted a photo 2 hours ago, crystal blue water, white sand, and a caption that read, "Paradise found. Sometimes business takes you to the most beautiful places." The geotag read, Maldives. Not Tokyo, the Maldives. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled further. Another photo appeared on the story of his business partner, Celeste Morrison, a woman with platinum blonde hair and ambitious eyes. The image showed 2 champagne glasses against the same turquoise backdrop, with the caption, "To successful partnerships." Victoria's world tilted. The coffee cup slipped from her hands, shattering against the marble floor. The sound echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Emma responded with a sharp kick, and suddenly Victoria felt a warm wetness between her legs. "No, no, no!" she whispered, gripping the counter. The contraction that followed was unmistakable. A deep, rolling pain that stole her breath. She wasn't due for 3 more weeks. With shaking hands, she called Jade. Her sister answered on the first ring. "Jade, I need you. Now." My water broke, and Marcus... Another contraction cut her off, this one stronger than the first. "I'm on my way. Don't move." Victoria slumped against the kitchen island, her designer robe now soaked, her perfect life crumbling around her. Through the pain, a fierce clarity emerged. She was about to bring a child into the world, and she would do it alone. But more than that, she was about to discover a strength she never knew she possessed. As sirens wailed in the distance and her body prepared for the battle ahead, Victoria Sterling began to shed the skin of the woman who had accepted lies and half-truths. The woman who emerged from this fire would be someone Marcus had never met and someone he would learn to fear. The storm had arrived, and Victoria was at its center. The sterile halls of Mount Sinai Hospital echoed with Victoria's labored breathing as Jade pushed her wheelchair through the emergency entrance. The contractions were coming every 3 minutes now, each one a reminder that her husband was sipping cocktails in paradise, while she faced the most important moment of their lives alone. "Room 314 is ready," announced Nurse Rebecca, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who had seen enough broken marriages to recognize the signs. She helped Victoria onto the hospital bed as Dr. Patricia Wells entered, her silver hair pulled back. "In a practical bun. Mrs. Sterling, I'm Dr. Wells. Let's see how you're progressing." After a quick examination, she nodded grimly. "You're already 7 centimeters dilated. This baby is eager to meet the world." Jade sat beside Victoria, her phone buzzing incessantly. As a corporate lawyer, she was used to multitasking under pressure, but watching her sister suffer while documenting evidence of Marcus's betrayal was testing even her limits. "He posted another photo," Jade whispered, showing Victoria the screen. Marcus and Celeste were now at a beachside restaurant, their hands intertwined across a table set for two. The caption read, "When business becomes pleasure." Victoria's grip on the bed rail tightened as another contraction hit. "Screenshot everything," she gasped. "Every single post." Dr. Wells looked up from her charts. "Is the father coming?" "He's unavailable," Victoria managed through gritted teeth. The doctor exchanged a knowing glance with Nurse Rebecca. They'd delivered enough babies to wealthy families to understand the unspoken story. Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination. Victoria had tried calling Marcus 17 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. Jade documented every unanswered attempt, every ignored message, building what she knew would be an unassailable case. At 11:47 p.m., with one final earth-shattering push, Emma Sterling entered the world. Her cry was strong and clear, cutting through the sterile hospital air like a declaration of independence. "She's perfect," Dr. Wells announced, placing the tiny, wrinkled baby on Victoria's chest. Victoria looked down at her daughter, Marcus's daughter, and felt something shift deep within her soul. This wasn't just love. It was a fierce, protective instinct that transformed her from victim to warrior in an instant. "Take a picture," she told Jade, her voice stronger than it had been. "In months. I want him to see what he missed." But as Jade raised her phone, Victoria stopped her. "Actually, don't. He doesn't deserve to see her until he faces what he's done." Jade smiled grimly and opened her contacts, scrolling to a name she'd hoped never to use. Helena Cross, the most ruthless divorce attorney in New York, known as the Predator in legal circles. Helena had never lost a case involving infidelity. As Victoria cradled her newborn daughter, Jade stepped into the hallway and made the call that would change everything. "Helena, it's Jade Chen. I need your help, and trust me, you're going to want this case." Part 3. The Web Tightens. 500 words. Helena Cross's corner office on the 42nd floor of the Chrysler Building commanded a view of Manhattan that most people only dreamed of. At 55, she had built her reputation on the ruins of unfaithful husbands' empires, and her steel-grey eyes had seen every variety of betrayal the wealthy could conjure. "Show me everything," she said, settling behind her mahogany desk as Jade spread out printed screenshots, bank statements, and travel records. Within an hour, Helena's team was dissecting Marcus Sterling's life with surgical precision. Her star private investigator, Tony Martinez, had already begun his digital excavation. "The timeline is damning," Tony reported via video call from his surveillance van outside Sterling Industries. Marcus booked the Maldives trip 3 months ago, the same week Victoria announced her pregnancy. "He's been planning this escape for months." Helena studied the evidence with the intensity of a chess master. "What about financials?" "That's where it gets interesting," Tony continued, his fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "I found irregular transfers from Sterling Industries to an account in the Caymans. We're talking about $2 million moved in the past 6 months. Jade leaned forward. "Embezzlement? At minimum, but there's more." Tony's voice carried the excitement of a hunter closing in on prey. "Celeste Morrison isn't just his business partner. She's been on the company payroll for consulting fees that don't match any actual work. Ghost invoices, inflated expenses, the works." Helena's smile was sharp as a blade. "Marcus Sterling isn't just an adulterous husband. He's a criminal." Back at the hospital, Victoria was learning to navigate life as a new mother while processing the magnitude of her husband's betrayal. Emma slept peacefully in her arms, oblivious to the war being waged on her behalf. "The beauty of this case," Helena explained during her afternoon visit, "is that we don't just have moral outrage, we have federal crimes. When Marcus stole from his own company, he gave us leverage that goes far beyond divorce court." Victoria's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "I want him to face consequences for everything. Not just the affair, but the lies, the theft, The complete disrespect. He will, Helena assured her. Tony's already coordinated with the FBI's white-collar crime division. They're very interested in Sterling Industries' bookkeeping irregularities. Meanwhile, Tony had positioned himself at the airport, monitoring flight schedules. Marcus's jet is scheduled to land at Teterboro tomorrow at 3 p.m., he reported. I've got teams ready to serve papers the moment he touches down. As the sun set over Manhattan, casting long shadows across the city, Marcus thought he still controlled. The pieces of his destruction were falling into place. Victoria might have been abandoned during the most vulnerable moment of her life, but she was no longer alone. She had an army of legal predators working to ensure that Marcus Sterling's return to New York would be his downfall. The web was tightening, and there would be no escape. The reckoning 100 words. The Teterboro airport tarmac shimmered in the afternoon heat as Marcus Sterling's private jet touched down. He adjusted his Rolex and straightened his tie, mentally rehearsing his performance. The snow globe from Copenhagen sat in his briefcase alongside a receipt from a hotel he'd never visited. He'd even managed to get a slight tan, which he planned to blame on unexpected Nordic sunshine. His phone buzzed with dozens of missed calls and messages, but he ignored them. Victoria was probably just anxious about the baby. Women got emotional during pregnancy. He'd smooth things over with flowers and promises, as he always did. The jet stairs lowered, and Marcus descended with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. But instead of his usual driver, 3 figures waited on the tarmac. A woman in an expensive grey suit, a man with a badge clipped to his belt, and a process server holding an envelope. "Marcus Sterling?" The woman stepped forward, her smile predatory. "I'm Helena Cross, representing your wife in divorce proceedings." Marcus's confident facade cracked slightly. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake." "No mistake." Detective James Parker flashed his badge. "You're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent." The process server thrust the legal documents into Marcus's stunned hands as the detective cuffed him. Helena watched with professional satisfaction as Marcus's world imploded in real time. "This is ridiculous," Marcus sputtered. "I'm a respected businessman. My wife is pregnant. She needs me." "Your wife gave birth 3 days ago," Helena said coolly, "while you were posting vacation photos with your mistress. And regarding your business reputation, the FBI has been investigating Sterling Industries for the past 72 hours. Your assets are frozen, your accounts seized, and your investors are fleeing like rats from a sinking ship." At Mount Sinai Hospital, Victoria watched. The news coverage from her private room, Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms. The reporter's voice carried through the room. "Prominent businessman Marcus Sterling was arrested today on federal charges of embezzlement and fraud. Sources close to the investigation suggest millions of dollars were misappropriated from his own company." Jade burst through the door, grinning triumphantly. "Did you see? Channel 7 picked up the story. His arrest footage is already viral." Victoria felt a strange calm settle over her. For the first time in years, she wasn't wondering where Marcus was, who he was with, or what lies he was telling. She knew exactly where he was, in a federal holding cell, facing the consequences of his choices. "How long before trial?" Victoria asked. "Helena thinks 18 months minimum. But with the evidence we have, the financial records, the witness testimony from hotel staff in the Maldives, Celeste's cooperation agreement with prosecutors, he's looking at serious prison time." Victoria gazed down at Emma, who had opened her eyes and was staring up with that unfocused newborn wonder. "Good," she whispered. "She deserves a world where actions have consequences." Outside, Manhattan continued its relentless pace, but inside that hospital room, justice was finally taking root. Part 5. Phoenix Rising 500 Words. 6 months later, Victoria Sterling stood in the nursery of her new Brooklyn Heights townhouse, watching the sunrise paint the East River gold. Emma gurgled happily in her crib, reaching for the mobile of paper cranes that spun slowly in the morning light. The penthouse was gone, sold to pay legal fees and establish Emma's trust fund, but this smaller space felt more like home than that marble mausoleum ever had. The doorbell chimed softly. Victoria smiled, recognizing the gentle rhythm. David. Kim had been Emma's primary nurse during those first difficult weeks, and his quiet strength had become an unexpected anchor in the chaos of her new life. "Morning delivery," he said, holding up coffee and pastries from the bakery around the corner. His smile was warm and uncomplicated, everything Marcus's calculated charm had never been. "You spoil us," Victoria said, accepting the coffee gratefully. David had officially asked her out 2 months ago, but he'd been courting both her and Emma much longer with small gestures and infinite patience. "Any updates on the trial?" David asked, settling beside her at the kitchen island while Emma played. In her bouncer nearby, Victoria nodded toward the newspaper folded on the counter. The headline read, "Sterling sentenced to 8 years for financial fraud." Below was a photo of Marcus in an orange jumpsuit, looking nothing like the polished executive who had once graced magazine covers. Celeste testified against him in exchange. "For a lighter sentence," Victoria explained. 3 years, but she'll likely serve 18 months. Helena says Marcus's appeals will fail. The evidence was overwhelming. David studied Victoria's face carefully. "How do you feel?" It was a question she'd asked herself every day since the arrest. "Free," she said finally. "For the first time in years, I can make decisions without wondering what lies I'm enabling or what truth I'm avoiding." The success of her consulting firm had surprised everyone, including herself. Helping other women navigate divorce and financial independence had become both her passion and her livelihood. She'd even been featured in Forbes as a second actor. "Success story," Emma babbled and reached toward David, who had become her favorite person outside of Victoria. He lifted her easily, his pediatric training evident in every gentle movement. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said, her heart racing with a nervousness she hadn't felt since those early days of uncertainty. The divorce was finalized. "Yesterday, officially legally, I'm no longer Mrs. Sterling." David's smile was radiant. "Victoria Chen has a nice ring to it," he said softly. She laughed, surprised by her own boldness. "We'll see about that. But for now, I'm just Victoria. And that's enough." As they sat together in the morning light, Victoria, David, and Emma, she realized that Marcus's betrayal had been a terrible gift. It had forced her to discover who she was beneath the role of devoted wife, to find strength she never knew she possessed. The phoenix had risen, and she was magnificent,